Okay, and welcome back. So this evening, sorry about the children in the background.
It's bedtime really for them.
Absolutely, bless them. And we're on a campsite, so obviously it's summer and there are other people here, and that's all part of camping. Anyway, back to where we are here now. Look, here we are again with the Cadac Safari Chef 2. Tonight we're going to do a bit of a light evening meal. We're going to do some jacket potatoes on here, and we're also going to do some barbecued baked beans, but really quick barbecued baked beans. So let's just have a look to see what we've got here. We've got some potatoes to put on the Cadac, so we can actually do those as jacket potatoes. And then for the barbecue baked beans, very simple, tin of Heinz baked beans, or any other baked beans are good enough, but I've got a tin of Heinz baked beans there, a red onion, some lardons, some rich brown sugar, which we brought with us from home, some oil and some vinegar, and that's all we need for those barbecue beans. And we're going to cook those first, and then while the jacket potatoes are actually cooking in the Cadac oven that we're going to set up, those barbecue beans can sit on top, just simmering away and getting all those tastes and juices together.
Can I add that this is sour cream?
Absolutely. Mrs. T does like sour cream and chives with our jacket potatoes as well. So we've got some zuurroom, which is Dutch for sour cream.
That's better than slagroom, isn't it?
Slagroom, which is normal cream apparently. And as you can see over the back there, I've got some fresh chives, which I will chop up and put in there. But what we're going to do is we're going to get everything ready now for the barbecue beans, and we'll come back to you in just a second. Yep. What?
I was just going to say, in the time it's taken you to chop up an onion, that little kid's gone to sleep.
Oh, bless him. Okay, right, Cadac's on. As you can see, it's set up ready for a pan to go on the top. Now, something really interesting about the Cadac Safari Chef 2 is I had to go for a large pan because of the diameter here. Otherwise, I found a smaller one wouldn't sit in between those three rests there. So just bear that in mind. You'll need a larger pan when you're using the Cadac Safari Chef 2.
But you'll be able to set 3 then, won't
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to heat the pan up. We're going to pop a drop of oil in there, like that.
That's a drop?
That's just a drop.
You drops.
Absolutely, do like a drop. It's like a glass of wine. Just let that start to get hot. Now, some people say, why do you want to put the oil in there as well as having the lardons? But you will see that all that will evaporate quite nicely, and it just helps cook it and gives you those flavours. So there we are. We're going to pop the onions into that oil, and we're going to just get those nicely sweated off and sautéed in there.
Sweating them?
I've got no idea really. And then just keep that on the move, those onions in that oil, keep that going, and just get those so they just start to go on the turn before they go brown.
I love the smell of roasted onions.
Always reminds me of a fun fair when I was a kid, the smell of onions. Because in those days you never had barbecues at home, and you only smelt them when you had a hot dog at the fun fair or somewhere. So there you go, keep those nicely on the move. And while that's happening, have a little slurp of wine, but please remember, drink responsibly.
Okay, right.
Okay. So keep those on the go, nicely moving, just like that. Then what we need is your lardons. This is just a packet of lardons I picked up from Aldi or Tesco's. Oh yeah, there you go, Aldi, before we came away. One of those things, because I didn't really know that they would have them in the Netherlands.
They got tons of them.
They've got loads of them. They must have reinvented them. So wallop those into those onions as well. Now obviously if you're vegetarian, you don't need to put lardons in there. You could put some carrot in there, or some other different vegetables, possibly some tomatoes or something. I'll leave that one up to you, but
we're not veggies, are we?
We're not veggies, so I think you would have seen that because of our roast lamb and roast pork and other things. So again, just keep that on the move and start to cook those lardons nicely in with those onions.
You have made some really nice this is, which you've got no meat in. Perhaps we'll start talking to them about that, really.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, what was it we did the other day, the Rosties. We didn't have the bacon in that. That would be quite nice.
Yeah.
So, and we were only saying the other day we could have put chives in with those.
Yeah.
So, to keep that on the go and keep that stirred and moving around. Okay. And now we're going to put some magic ingredients into this. We're going to put some vinegar. And there's no science in this. I'm not telling you how much to put in. I'm leaving that up to you. But a good splosh of vinegar in there like that takes the sizzle off it. But then you'll be able to bring that back up. And you'll find all of a sudden it takes on a completely different smell. You've got a sharpness going on there with that vinegar. So bring that back up to the heat and let that get bubbling again. This is on full blast with a Cadac. So the gas is full blast. So let that come back up to a boil. And then just as that starts to come up to a boil, there's some of this. Some dark brown sugar. Now we've got some in the cupboard, I think left over from last year's Christmas cake baking. So what you need here now is a good 3 teaspoons.
He's awake again across the way.
Yeah, of dark brown sugar. Pop that in there.
Nearly.
Yeah, put that on the floor. And then just stir that in. Now you can see that starting to take on a darkness in there. Completely different colour. So you're going to have the sweetness from that sugar and you're going to have the tanginess from that vinegar in there. And that is absolutely lovely. Now what we want to do here is just let that start to bubble away. Just for a few minutes. We need it just to reduce just enough so it starts to go a bit thick and a bit glazy and a bit caramelly, and that is when we're going to throw the baked beans in there as well. Don't worry about time on this, because once this is done, and you can see this doesn't take too long, we'll pop the jacket potatoes in under the cover here and let them start to cook. But this sits on top of the Cadac and still bubbles away and ferments. It just keeps going while those potatoes are cooking, and honestly these are absolutely glorious when you taste them. So you can see we're bubbling away there. We're going to reduce that and we'll come back to you in a minute or so once that's reduced and we can add those baked beans. Okay, we've been here about 4 minutes now, Mrs. T.
Probably a little bit longer.
Okay, let's say 5 minutes. Okay, and you can see how that liquid in there has reduced and it's started to caramelise. You see that? It's getting thick. You're getting bigger bubblies. Bigger bubbles in there. And you can see that that sauce in there is getting quite thick. This is the stage when we need to add the beans. So what we're doing now is we're adding the baked beans in here and we're going to mix that into that sweet sugary flavour of those lardons and that onions. There's only 4 calories in it,
that's all right,
2 each. And then pop those baked beans into that.
But they're reduced fat beans, aren't they? Or
No, these are reduced sugar, these
right,
beans.
Okay. Well, that's fine then.
Because I think it's healthier for
Yeah.
us oldies if you're looking after your old...
Regardless of the amount of sugar you just shoved in that.
Absolutely, So, being attacked by seagulls.
Lovely.
And then gently stir that caramelised onion and lardons into those baked beans. There we go, look at that. And you'll get the flavour of those baked beans, you'll get the sweetness of that sugar, you get the sharpness of all that vinegar going in there. And what we need to do now is just to bring
I love the way you say
these
sweetness. Can you say that again?
sweetness of that sugar and sharpness of that vinegar.
I can't say it like you do. Say it again.
Sweet, oh, go away. Right, here we go. What we're going to do now is bring those up to the boil, and then once they're boiling away, we're going to place the lid on. So we'll come back to you again in a few minutes, just as that starts to happen. Right, now that was literally 2 minutes and that has come to the boil, and you can see how thick that is now. all that mixture is blended in there, and those beans with that sweet and that sort of tangy vinegar flavour, it's all in there working. So what do we do now with this? Well, this is the simple bit. Just clean your spoon.
I can just stick it in your mouth then, that's
So pop the lid on, bring it down, pop it onto a wooden board, turn your Cadac off, okay, and just let that cool down. That's all you need to do now for the next few minutes. Then we let this cool down, then we add the griddle pan to the top, and then I've got a new little part that I think I showed you, no I haven't shown you this one yet, that we're going to add to the griddle pan just to raise the jacket potatoes off the top, and then we're going to pop them in there and create an oven like we do with the meat, and that's as simple as it is. So we'll come back to you in a couple of minutes when everything's cooled down, and I'll show you the setup that we can then carry on cooking those jacket potatoes. Right, here we are. So we're now set up for the jacket potatoes. So what have I done? I've taken that pan stand away and put the griddle pan back on there. Then I'm going to place this on top of the griddle pan, and then I'm going to pop this in there as well and put the jacket potatoes on top of here. Now, this is my new addition. It's not a Cadac product. This is something that I bought off Amazon. I think it was about £11–12, but you can certainly search for them. And my thought is, if we put it there, raise it above that griddle, put the potatoes on there, the air will circulate, and that should bake in an oven. So that's the thought, and that's what we're going for. So what we're going to do is add that onto there, pop that on top, just to protect from the griddle, any marking on there, and then place those potatoes. Now what I've done is I've selected relatively small potatoes.
Are you going to pinch them or punch them? Or?
I am, yep.
Oh.
I've already done those ones.
Okay.
So if you can just bear with me, Mrs. T.
Okay.
And all I've done is I've taken a small knife like this and just gone round the edge like that, just scored around the edge of the potato just to give it a bit of a pairing around there. Pop those in there, and then we're going to take that Cadac lid and just place that on the top there quite nicely. That now is going to heat up and become an oven, and the really good thing about that is that it will carry on baking, and we should get some really nice potatoes. Now, because those potatoes are really quite small, they shouldn't take as long as some big ones, and obviously if you stick a big potato on there, it's not going to fit with that lid. So that's the reason why I'm choosing the smaller ones, and they're going to cook quick. Now, the cheeky little thing here is make sure this is on a surround that is pretty solid. Take your beans and look at those beans. You can see how thick we've done.
You took the lid off. That smells
yeah,
gorgeous.
we've done nothing with those since we cooked them, and all we're going to do now is just place the lid back on there and then pop those on the top there, and that oven is going to keep those beans just ticking over, reducing all those tastes and flavours melting into one. So be careful here. Make sure it's an area that's not going to be knocked. You've got no children around. It's
dogs.
relatively safe, but I just want to make sure that you are aware that there could be an accident. So leave that like that. We will come back to you in half an hour, and we'll just move the potatoes around and just see how things are going. But yeah, now is the time just to sit back, have a slurp of wine, watch the sun start to go down, and start to relax and enjoy your evening camping. Catch up with you again shortly. Okay, so here we are, half an hour down the line. What I forgot to tell you just after I turned the video off last time was turn the heat right back to low on here. You don't need to have this on a high heat, so keep that on a really low heat, and this will actually just build up the heat within this oven and keep this going on the top. Now this will not boil, don't expect this to boil. All that's happening here is the intense heat that's coming through that lid is going into that pan and just ticking it over, keeping it hot and making sure that those flavours still all absorb. As you can see, it's not boiling, it's steaming, it's staying hot, but then when you After half an hour, just give it a stir, and you can see it's just getting thicker. And was it smell like, Mrs. T?
Absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous. There you go.
We did also say that if you had any sausages or something, or hot dog sausages left over or anything like that.
Yeah, we were
stick it
just
in.
talking. We said if we got any sort of sausages left over from breakfast, you could pop them in there, anything like that as well, just to give it that little bit of oomph. And
Or actually, if the kids didn't like lardons, if you're making it for kids or whatever, it's like sausages and beans. So you
yeah,
put
that's
little
right.
tiny-
Yeah, little tiny hot dogs in
Yeah.
there, things like that. So you could bulk it out and make it a bit more meatier, and make it more of that meal. So let's just take that off there, pop that onto the wooden board.
Where are we going to put that?
I'm just going to pop this onto the floor, so don't worry about that. There's the potatoes.
Oh my god, they're steaming too.
You know, these are hot, and I can tell you just by pinching them, they are really starting to sort of soften up. So all I want to do here is just to turn them over, only because I know you wouldn't do this in an oven normally, just because you've got the intense heat coming from underneath, and I just want to make sure that we get an even cook on those. That is the only reason we're doing that. So we've turned them over.
Do I need to wipe that?
Nope. Let's pop that lid back on there. Don't need to wipe that because no food gets in contact with
No,
that.
I know, I just worried about the scratching
there you
of
go.
the stones on.
And then what we're going to do is pop those beans back on there, set the timer for another 30 minutes, have another glass of wine,
Oh, that's easy.
yeah,
That's good.
and then come back and just squeeze those potatoes and see if they're starting to get nice and soft. And if they are, we're just then going to chop up some chive. Oh God, she's on one.
I was just thinking squeezing potatoes. Never mind.
No, you're. Oh, God, I do apologise. Anyway, squeeze the potatoes, make sure they're nice and soft, and then we'll get some chives, chop them up, put them in that sour cream so we're ready for serving up. We'll come back to you again in half an hour. Okay, so half an hour later, so that's 1 hour in total. Let's take the lid off the beans. They are still nice, steamy hot, so let's just give them another stir. Because again, those flavours need to be mixed in. Absolutely wonderful. Pop that down there. Let's pop the, that's hot. Pop the lid back on there, so they're still okay. Let's look at the potatoes. Lid off.
Oh, they look nice.
So you can see the potatoes are now starting to cook. I don't know if you can see that on the video. That's the line where I scored that potato, and that's now, oh, I can actually squeeze that, and they are really, you can feel they're quite soft. Oh, see, look, there you go. That is after an hour on the Cadac, so we have got some jacket potatoes there. So I'm just going to try and, they're really hot here.
Do you want the tea towel?
Just turn that
Have a
quickly.
tea towel.
Yeah, that might get in the way actually.
Oh, whatever.
Just turn those again. Ha ha. Perhaps I should have.
Hang on.
Hang
Must
on a
be half
second.
an hour going on.
Yep.
Hang on.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
Right, so
catastrophe
just
over.
keep turning those over. These are now absolutely well and truly there. So I've just turned them again. I'm going to pop the lid back on just to keep that heat going. Pop that back on there
Are you
just
turning
to
it off
keep
then or not?
the heat. No, that's already there.
Okay.
So we'll leave that on, and I'm just going to prepare this chopping board now. And
Prepare a chopping board.
and
Sorry.
stupid woman. And then we're going to do the chives and the sour cream, and then I think we might be ready to serve up. So just going to do a quick change of set, and we'll be back with you shortly. Okay, right, so let's take the lid off the serum, which is basically sour cream in Dutch.
Okay.
Okay, thanks
Start.
very much.
Hang on.
There we go.
In the bin.
Okay, give that a bit of a stir. Okay, just to get that going in there. And all I'm going to do now is, I've got a chive plant in the background there. I'm just going to gently chop.
We always go on holiday, don't we, with chive plants, basil
Chive,
plants,
absolutely,
and mint plants.
yeah.
The mint plant is for the pims.
Pims, always.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always, yeah.
Now, we have done this in the winter when you can't necessarily get a chive plant, and we've used the dry chives.
How much wine have we had?
the
It's a long
dry,
video, isn't it?
yeah, the dry chives. Trust me, I haven't had a glass really. I've just had a
Rubbish.
slurp. And you know, if you use the dry ones, pop them in there, but just leave them in there a little bit longer, because then they start to break down and go a little bit moist, which is what it's all about. So let's just take that. Let's take the big stringy ones away from there. Then all we need to do is just drop those chives into the top of that pot. I don't know if you can hear that buzzing going on in the background. That's microlights going over us tonight. We've had about 20 of them.
Yeah, we're right near the beach, aren't we? They're like
Yeah.
over and top, and it's lovely to watch.
Yeah, it is actually, and I should imagine it's just as good while you're up there in the sky.
But you don't like heights, do you? So it'll freak
Yep,
you out.
you won't catch me up there. So there you go. All we're going to do then is mix those fresh chives. Here we go again. Fresh chives into that sour cream. Make our own.
I don't need the potato. I just need
Exactly.
that.
You love this, don't you?
I do,
Actually.
I love it.
So if you can look at that, you can see all those chives are mixed in there into that sour cream. Absolutely gorgeous. And you saw the potatoes were cooked earlier. So the next thing we're going to do is serve up and take a look to see the end product. We'll catch up with you in just a second. So here we are. Let's just start to serve up. So these are the really hot potatoes. Let's just cut those across the top like that, and then just take your 4 fingers and push them through. You'll see them open
Oh,
up.
look at that.
And the same with that one. These are really, really well cooked. And that's not bad for, what was it, an hour on the Cadac? And same with that one. Oh, fingers are getting a bit warm. Open that up. And then we have still got 2 more on the Cadac. Another one each, which if you have stay there, I'll bring another one over here like this.
You're hungry then?
No, just in case, you know, you weren't. And there we go. Open them up like that. One more. And you saw me split that one on the Cadac earlier, so I'm just going to pop that one in there like that. So, here we go. Let's look at the chives and that sour cream. We'll dollop that into there for Mrs. T.
Just on the one, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's fine.
all right. Are you going to try some barbecue beans as well?
So stick one on that for me, and then you can have, and then stick 1 barbecue beans, and I'll make my mind up as
Yep.
to what I'm doing in a
Okay.
minute. Oh my god! I tell you
there
what,
we
folks,
go.
I certainly have to wait for my dinner.
These are the barbecue beans. Look how thick they are, full of flavour. And we'll just stick those over the top.
Mr. T said that he learnt to do barbecue beans years and years and years ago when he was in America, and he's been dying to make them for me ever since.
And we've been married 24 years.
And you went to America, what, how many years ago? 30 odd years ago?
Exactly. So there's some barbecue beans for me. I'm just going to stick
Everything on there because you just
barbecue
love that,
beans.
don't you?
And I'm going to be a bit cheeky
Why?
because I'm going to
You put that on top.
no, not on top, just on the side there. Just some sour cream and chive on the side.
Not many calories in that then, is there?
Well, there isn't. Of course there isn't. But just look at that. Look. You've seen that. You've seen us cook that on the Cadac again. Jacket potatoes, barbecue beans. We've prepared some sour cream and chives, and we've served it up. There we go. Look, it's not
why not?
rocket science. We can do it, and we can do it on the Cadac. And you can do this camping, and you can do it in the caravan. Now, also, just a quick one. A couple of people are worried that we are cooking inside an awning. Can we just bring the camera up, Mrs. T?
Yeah.
Look, we've got a vent there, there's a door there. We do it in the corner here because we're protected by the wind. And then coming round, the front of the van or the front of the awning is completely open. And then we have the side of the awning as well. Okay, so I hope that really puts your mind at rest that we're not cooking in an enclosed awning. We wouldn't
funny,
do it.
but it's the same gas that you get in that you're cooking in your caravan.
Absolutely.
So I don't understand why that would be any
I know.
different to
It's not a
cooking
charcoal barbecue, it's a
No.
gas barbecue.
Yeah.
But there you go. We are not cooking in enclosed
Let's
awnings.
put it this way, we're not dead yet.
No, so that's important.
Okay.
So here we are. We're at Delarkin's campsite in the Netherlands. We're going to sit down now and tuck into these barbecue beans and jacket potatoes. I really, really hope you've enjoyed the video. Please, please, please give us a thumbs up if you found that one of quite an interest. Hit that red button, please. That's white, but hit the red button and subscribe, because the more you subscribe, the more we can bring you of little things like this, which are quick, simple recipes to do when you're caravanning, camping, or in the motorhome. There you go. Thank you, thank you, thank you for watching, and bye for now.